Welcome back to the Mackem in the Middle podcast, and of course, the first review of a game, and actually the first ever championship review that we've done as a podcast. Of course, we started this when we were in League One, we're now in the championship. So, first game of the season was, of course, yesterday at home to Coventry City, a game that did finish 1-1. Sunderland took the lead, and Coventry did get the late equaliser, which of course we'll get into. I'm joined by John and hopefully very soon Kyle. Like I said, first game of the season, John. It was an exciting build-up to the game.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, there's a bit of anticipation, getting back into the championship and leaving that long slog of League One behind finally. But yeah, it's nice to it's been mostly positive under Alex Neil anyway. So it was nice to keep that sort of crest of the wave of positivity on the field going. And yesterday was no different. I sat and watched it in a bar in Tenerife on my holiday, and yeah, it was. We missed the first couple of minutes because the bar didn't open on time. But yeah, from seeing all the pictures and the videos on social media, and obviously the displays that the guys did was it was all fantastic. Obviously leading up to the game, and like we say, let's hope that the home games continue to be just as good, if not better.
Yeah, and of course we haven't really had the time to talk about the build-up to the season, the pre-season games, the preparation for the season. They've made a few signings, of course. Dan Ballard from Arsenal, Lessie from West Ham, and of course, Jack Clark came back, Patrick Roberts signed a new deal, and then just recently the signing of Alex Bass as a backup, potentially third-choice goalkeeper. Listening to what Alex Neil said on the radio the other day, still plenty of work to do in the transfer window. I think Alex Neil said after the game yesterday that he's still looking to bring in 4 or 5 players. Obviously, Nathan Broadhead is a deal that's kind of rattled on for the last few weeks, and whether that happens anytime soon or not, I don't know. But so far, so good in the transfer window, I would say.
Yes, it's not been too bad. Obviously, there'd be other people out there who know, sort of Ballard and Elise, I think is his name, better than I do. But they seem solid championship additions, from Premier League, academy. So they ideally should come and slot in. It seems like we've done our homework on them. But like you say, there's still more to come. I think, didn't Alex Neil say he wanted sort of 4 to 5?
Yeah.
More. I think we still need competition in the goalkeeping area, to keep Patterson on his toes, and maybe get a few of the youngsters like Kearney sort of loaned out, because they'll need that. I still think maybe, even though Gooch was decent yesterday, I still think we need a solid right back with obviously Huggins injury record. Obviously we'll touch on the game, but I thought the midfield, even though we've got Winchester and Matete, I still think we're a little bit light in there in terms of sort of dictating games. Again, we could probably go for another winger, maybe, if the rumours are to believe that Jack Diamond maybe isn't really going to get a look in. And then again, we need someone maybe different, like touching on the Broadhead situation. He'd bring a different dimension to what Sims and Stewart do. So yeah, you still think there's 4 or 5 additions, but like I said, the market's still open. So far, it's been solid enough. It's probably quite telling that sort of Deaku, wasn't playing yesterday. I think Matete wasn't in the squad either, and Winchester. So I think there's got to be some sort of manoeuvre there, maybe for one or two of those, maybe to go. Not necessarily Deaku, because we've only just signed him, but certainly Winchester, Diamonds. You'd expect 1 or 2 to filter out the door to be able to press on with the 4 to 5 to coming in. But yeah, so far, so good.
Yeah, obviously touching on signings, Kyle. Now that you're out with us, of course, like we said there, Alex Neil does say that 4 or 5 players ideally before the end of the window. I think Speakman was talking to Sky before the game, and he's he kind of pinpointed 2 or 3 positions. Didn't necessarily specify which positions, but it's obviously hard to bring in 4 or 5 players. It's not as easy as it sounds. If you had to prioritise, let's say, 3 new signings, what positions would you be looking at?
Well, I think we still have a lot of time for one. I think a lot of people, obviously we want the signings now because the season starts, but we still have about 5 weeks or so. So I do think other clubs are going to make moves that kind of create a domino effect. And I think it's smart for us to not really show our cards too early, right? If we say, hey, we need this, this, and this, anytime we've reached out to a team, they're going to know we're desperate for that specific type of player. So, they could, screw with us with the wages and things like that. But for me, the thing I noticed yesterday, and I think I mentioned it in the group chat a couple of times, was just the size, especially in the midfield from championship clubs. We have really good ball playing players, like pretty much all across the pitch. And I think our back line has gotten bigger, which is that was a necessity. You could see it in the midfield, though. As much as Corey Evans really turned on toward the end of the season out there, and I think he did okay. I think he struggled a little bit, though. It was really the size and probably the speed difference in the midfield for me that led directly to their goal. One player picking up a little bit deep. Yeah, he's obviously their striker, and he's obviously really good, but he just blew right past both 09 and Evans, who are both known to be relatively physical. We just need a bigger presence for me. So I would obviously start with a center midfielder, one specifically with size. I don't need him to be an ace with these long passes and things like that, because we have those players. Someone to, if they have a player who's dribbling right through the middle, either take a tactical foul, knock him off the ball, something to stop that play. And then really, I think probably striker is the second one. I don't think that's I with Sims, I think it's going to help a lot. And with Sims, I think we can obviously play the same way we do with Stewart, but it would be nice someone like a Broadhead, maybe a smaller type of striker, something to if kicking it up to the big guys doesn't work in, like, let's get someone behind the back line. I think that would be second. And then third is just depth just about anywhere. I think goalkeeper is a good shout, though. But overall, and I don't know if we touched on it, just really good showing from our academy yesterday, I think was one thing I noticed. I think that's important. So I just want to get that in there as well. But yeah, signings definitely have to come, and I think we still have plenty of time for that.
Yeah. So size doesn't matter unless you're a midfielder on Sunderland's radar. Is what you're trying to say?
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Just name that as the pod. I think that's a good title. Size doesn't matter.
Absolutely. A few talking points before we'll kind of just get into the game and what happened. Obviously, some of them will be about the game, some of them won't be. The first one is obviously when Coventry scored, John. Things thrown from the top of the stadium again. People hit supposedly by glass bottles. Don't know how true that is, but there was definitely a flare thrown down. The club have acknowledged that it's an issue. It's happened multiple times when we played Coventry, a couple of times when we played Portsmouth, and probably a few other teams as well. The club has to do something about it.
Yeah, they do. But I think it's one of those, you're sort of always hitting a brick wall, I think, with it, because these are the sort of things that should be severely addressed sort of midsummer. And then, plans, put into place. They've come out with their, their Protect Football, tweets and, campaigns of, no flares and no this and no that and keep football safe and all this, which is fine. But you've got to put the measures in place to stop that. Now, if that's severely reduce, I don't know if that would make a difference, but severely reducing their allocation to sort of half punish them, teams who continually, do this.
I mean, the obvious thing for me is, I think when people do it, they get a stadium ban. Someone must have the authority to ban them from just attending football matches.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's hard. If you have a flare, people take flares all the time to games, and they'll set one off, and it's not necessarily a danger to anyone. But when you throw them at people from that height as well, when people aren't looking, it can cause injury. And if you got banned from football for, let's say, 3 years, 2 years, whatever it could be, that would deter people from doing it.
Yeah, exactly. But you very rarely hear about people getting caught and getting banned. It's just one of those. It's almost accepted. They'll come out and condemn it because they have to, for probably insurance purposes and safety purposes to see that they're doing something. But there's no real action. And that's what you want to see. I can't see why, if you're keeping the away fans up there, which it looks like we are, why there's not a massive net in there. I'm not saying that will protect at all costs, but that's a start. Then you punish allocations. I'm sure there's other things that they can do that I can't think off the top of my head, but it has to be a little bit more proactive from the club. And I don't think we're at that stage now. I'm sure I've seen a tweet where they've put it to the the red and white army to put forward to the club.
Yeah.
Again, that always seems like a long, drawn out process, and no real sort of cutting edge stuff ever seems to get done. So it's definitely a problem, and definitely one they urgently need to look into. Because if the stadium's full, there's there's kids underneath, and the last thing we want is anything bad to happen, and you've got to stamp it out. So football's just got to be a safe environment now, and you have to do all you can. Otherwise people will stop going if those types of things keep happening.
Yeah. Hopefully something comes out from that from the club in due course. Moving on to another point, Kyle, the return of the referee debate.
Oh no.
Which, in fairness, you can look at some of the decisions he made throughout the game. I don't think any really impacted the game.
Right.
There's the one that I actually missed at the time, which was the Lugo 9 tackle, which I'm sure you two saw at the end, which,
Oh yeah,
people are saying should have been a red card. I still haven't seen the tackle, so I don't know. But overall, I don't think he had a too bad game, but there were a few decisions that weren't given for Sunderland that definitely seemed to be given for Coventry.
Listen, if this was against Roma again, Jose Mourinho might have killed somebody, to be honest, on that 09 tackle. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things like, I haven't watched a lot of championship football in the past. Obviously, it's been League One, and then, we get a lot of Prem out here. So, watch that. But I would always hear about championship refereeing just being no better than League One. Yesterday, honestly, I did think it was better because I thought both teams were very physical and they were allowed to play physically, and that's exactly what I expected. Like, this is a bigger, faster league. It's going to be a little bit more physical, at times. I thought the ref did okay. Yeah, the 09 one really, like, that was one that we absolutely got away with because I do think it was a red card. But at the same time, like, Stewart got pushed off a bunch. I mean, this ref wasn't having it, and all these referees too, they all meet prior to seasons. They go through their own trainings. They go through certain things. And so probably for the last 2 months or whatever, they've sat in a room and they've been told, like, hey, we're going to referee this a different way and this a certain way. Nothing drastic. But they come right out of that class, the first game. Obviously they probably had some preseason, but I'm sure throughout the season things will balance out. I think yesterday, I think it was a little bit more physical. I think later on the season, referees will kind of adjust a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't too up in arms. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of, bad calls here and there, but that's just going to happen. But really, it was the 09 thing for me. I was just like, that was one that we probably got away with. So it probably played to our favor. But I think some people probably would have preferred 09 to get a red card so that he doesn't play in the next game. But
there's definitely a few.
Yeah, right.
I probably agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. But overall, I thought it was okay.
Yeah. Moving on to the game, because pretty much the rest of the points are game-related or tactic-related or whatever it may be. The team at the start of the game was a back five or back three, depending on how you look on it, for Sunderland. Obviously, Patterson, given the number one shirt ahead of the new season, he started in goal. Lyndon Gooch, Daniel Ballard, Danny Bart, Dennis Serkin, and Jack Clark as the back five.
Yes.
Obviously, Dennis Serkin playing at centre-back, Corey Evans and Dan Neil behind Embleton, Pritchard and Stewart. Was there any surprises in that starting 11, John? Maybe Patrick Roberts, obviously Trey Hume. He had a very good pre-season, but didn't really feature too much in the league last year. Give or take, I'd imagine that is the team that most people expected.
Yeah, I'd probably go along with that. I think maybe we're looking at how strong. I think they were quite strong down their left-hand side, which is why probably Gooch played and not Roberts, because of Gooch's sort of hard work defensive duties. But yeah, apart from that, the rest of the team, you'd expect to play at home. I'm not too sure. Obviously, I wanted him to play, but I wasn't too sure that he'd start. Dan Neil, but fair play to him, he did, and he always seems to sort of play okay for sort of 60 minutes and then sort of drifts out of the game. I'd like to have seen him changed maybe on the 60-minute mark. Like I say, you think he drifts in and out of games. But again, I think that just highlights the need maybe for another centre midfielder different to what we have.
Yeah. And obviously this season, Kyle, there was 5 subs. Only 2 of which were actually made for Sunderland yesterday. I think Coventry made 4, I think. Possibly 5, I'm not sure. But going forward, Sunderland do have a lot of options at the minute. whether you think they are quality depth or not, they are there. Embleton, Robert, Clark, Diaku, Diamond, Pritchard, all players that can play in that final third. Sims, Stewart, hopefully a third striker coming in. It is something that will probably benefit Sunderland going forward.
Absolutely. And that's why the depth, and I'm so glad to, I'm a huge fan of the 5 subs. I just think, for one, it's going to allow clubs to kind of retain and develop youth players better, give them a little bit more of an opportunity, a little bit more of like, hey, like, there's definitely a chance you'll go in this game, different things like that. So I think overall it's a great decision. And yeah, just like you said, I think with Patrick Roberts not starting, I think the idea for him moving forward for the most part is going to be, hey, we need you to change the game, and you are absolutely a player on our bench that can change the game. And I think even when he went in yesterday, he made a ton of really good plays and exciting options. I think really what Alex Neil and the club, and obviously they are going to have it, under wraps. Once they get in the players that they want, the depth that they need, it's just about figuring out the timing. I think with 5 subs too, and I'm not sure, are there designated windows for these subs? I know
I'm pretty sure you get 3 opportunities to make subs.
Okay.
So if you can make one sub, and 3, or
right,
that. But if you make one sub, then one sub, then one sub, you can't use all 5.
Okay, got it. Yep, yeah. So that too, that there's going to be a lot of strategy into that, is when to kind of implement those subs and things like that. But I do think I like most of our depth right now. Like I said, the players like Sims and Patrick Roberts, those are 2 players that you can bring on with hopes of changing a game. Or on the backside too, it's like, hey, we need to solidify this. Let's throw on another defender. Let's throw on defensive midfielder, what have you. But it really boils down to having those players, and I do think that recruitment's taking that very seriously too. I think the 5 subs present a lot more opportunity for a club like Sunderland, and like I said, with I think it's going to help our academy in the end too. I think having these subs is just going to show people that, hey, there's a lot more options, there's a lot more depth on the bench, a lot more opportunity for you to play. And I think we're going to be able to retain these players instead of them just being sold and bought off to larger, quote unquote larger clubs. You know what I mean? But I think that's what's happened the last few years, is that, a lot of academy players probably got siphoned up because they didn't see the opportunity to get in when there was only 2, 3 subs, whatever it was. And I think now we're going to see a lot more players on the field, which I like.
Yeah. Moving on to the game, as a whole, Sunderland started the game fairly well. Coventry didn't see too much of the ball really in the first 15 minutes, and it was about 12 minutes in that Sunderland got the first goal, and I think it was the first goal in 1,200 days since we've been in the Championship, so it was definitely celebrated. And it was a goal that I don't think we've seen enough of from Sunderland recently. Lyndon Gooch got the ball, he beat his man, put a ball into the box, and Jack Clark, who Alex Neil said after the game, he has been nagging at him to get in at the back post and attack that ball. He did. Keeper probably at fault for it. He comes for it when he probably didn't need to. But John, that is a positive sign that people are starting to get in the box, because how many times last season, especially, whether it was Ross Stewart on the ball or whoever it was, would get a ball into the box and there just wasn't anyone there to attack it.
Yeah, you've got to put bodies in the box. I think for years in League One, we just didn't fill the box enough. Maybe until sort of Lee Johnson came along. But you will reap the rewards if you get the ball into that area. Put someone there. As long as someone's there, there'll always be an opportunity. I think Ross Stewart, even at Wembley, I think a few times he popped up sort of last man at the back post, and probably should have done better with his chances. But he's getting into the right positions, and it doesn't matter who we've got. Pritchard, Embleton, Gooch, Roberts. You could name all of them. Any of the front sort of 6 or 7 players, would score a chance, at the back post. And you take those opportunities, and then, all right, I'd say it's a bit of a howler from the goalkeeper. I don't think the defenders have helped him out either, because Jack Clark's one of the shortest players on the pitch, behind Pritchard, manages to sort of stoop and score a header. I think that was one opportunity a little bit later on in the game where he doesn't gamble, Jack Clark, and then the ball just sort of floats out. So it does show you, if you can get players, at the back post, there will be chances there, and that's, we're obviously we've got to take them.
Yeah. And on the topic of chances, Kyle, Sunderland had quite a few throughout the game. Obviously, we know how it ended, but it was a positive sign. First game of the season. The kind of pressure is to not lose really on the first game. But Sunderland had a lot of chances. Some of these players haven't played Championship football before. Ross Stewart, Jack Clark, because he has, but he hasn't had a club to to kind of settle in at. There's so many players there playing their first game. So to create that many chances like we did in that game is a positive sign going forward, providing that we are able to start taking them more often.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think especially in the first half, that's where we saw most of them. Because I think Jack Clark came up with another, it's like a little half volley too that came in there. There's some really good shots, just not really in the right position. And I think as we move forward too, people are going to get a little bit more confidence, or just I don't even know if confidence is the right one, but just kind of wherewithal of just how to beat keepers in the championship. Because I think in League One it's a different beast. There were some good keepers, don't get me wrong, but there was a lot of shots that just wouldn't go in, I don't think, in this league. But I think a lot of it just has to do with confidence and decision making and making quick decisions. On that Jack Clark goal, I think what Gooch did, for example, was he knew he was going to fake the man, and he just got the ball in as soon as he got space, and then right from there, Jack Clark made the run, and yeah, there was a few players in the box, which was great to see. So just like you mentioned there, but I think really what is going to bump up in this league is just be quick. If you're going to shoot, just shoot the ball. Just shoot the ball. Yeah. Don't take that extra touch. Sometimes, yes, finding the extra pass is going to be an option. But really, we have to make sure that when we do get chances, we are at least getting shots on goal, because, if we end games without any opportunities and chances, you're obviously not going to win. So I know that sounds pretty basic, but and I think we'll get to that, and I'm sure that's what they're working on in training, is just quick first time decisions, and that's absolutely what separates this league. Is just making those split decisions, and that's how you're going to beat the keeper. That's how you're going to beat the defender, is thinking quicker than they can.
Yeah, and obviously Alex Neil said after the game, John, that he wants, especially in the final third, for people to make more risks with passing, with crosses, with runs, with whatever it might be. And we do have the players to take the risks. Alex Pritchard, he's played in the Premier League, he's played top level Championship football, and that's probably where his level is, right at the top end of the Championship. So we have the players to take the risks. It's just about having the nerve to do it, I suppose, in big games like this.
Yeah, of course. It could probably sound really simple to, just not me and you to say, just try that pass. But obviously, yeah. I think it was late sort of second half when Pritchard tried that ball that, probably no one else probably saw, and it cut out all of their defenders, and Jack Clark gets a shot at goal. It's one of those things where the manager and the coaching staff have got to be on at them 24/7. Like, I saw Dan Neil, barring the one bad turn on the box, just try stuff, be confident at doing stuff, because like you say, they have got the ability. Embleton can do stuff, Pritchard, Roberts. We've got so much talent, sort of forward thinking talent in there, and like you say, you've got them. That's what separates the quality players from the from sort of the run of the mill players. Try that, and we've got players in and around the box, like we were saying earlier, who could take those chances, and you'll catch teams off guard. We'll probably move on to the Coventry goal, but what a finish, just sort of bottom corner out of nowhere. Obviously we could talk about the build up play, but he sort of fought quick, and bang, it's bottom corner and it's a goal. And it's like we're saying, it's about quick decision making, and very, very simple. Be confident in your ability, and just go. They've got to have and I think they do have this. They've got to have the freedom and the patience to go and play like that. I still think it was maybe at home with 40,000 people watching. Still, I think that little bit of pressure's maybe still there. But ultimately, we want these people to go out there and play to the crowd, and not be nervous of it. Just like you say, go and play your game, because they have got the talent. We know they have.
Yeah, and obviously John has just kind of alluded on one of the other points I was going to make. So he has reminded me, while Sunderland have the ability to score goals, create chances, this, that, and the other, there was a few times in the game that Sunderland did make a mistake, from whether it's a lapse of concentration or perhaps just overplaying it a little bit. And obviously that best example of that is when we were playing out from the back. I wasn't even watching at the time because it was goal kick, and I was like, oh, nothing's going to happen here. And I think Dan Neil, like John alluded to there, he's turned inside of his own box. They've got the ball back and definitely should have scored. I think it was Matty Godden who put it wide from just about 5-10 yards out. They do have to be wary about that, because the standard of quality, the standard of forwards in this league is much better than in League One, and more often than not, if you give teams chances like that, they will make you pay for it.
Yeah, no, same thing too. I looked down and all of a sudden I saw it, I saw it go wide, and I was like, "Well, how'd that happen?"
Yeah.
And I think too that you got a young player in Dan Neal who is still who I think has tremendous upside. Obviously, I think we all do. But you have a young player, him. Then you have a relatively inexperienced keeper as well. And as good as Patterson was, I maybe in different, and maybe I can't hear it because it's on TV and stuff. But he just doesn't seem like the most vocal of goalkeepers, and I really like my goalkeeper to just be shouting constantly, because I think it has good command. Everyone is typically organized. Maybe it's annoying to some players, but I always like that. It's just having a goalkeeper who's always aware of what's going on. So I think that'll develop. And I think that's why also like having good competition at goalkeeper is really strong. I don't think it necessarily was Patterson's fault because I think Daniel kind of left him out to dry there. But at the same time, these are new players playing together for really the first time, especially at this level, and they're going to learn really quick that these types of decisions can't be made. Or they have to be more thought out. But at the same time, you also have to just kind of to move on, right? You can't let it sit in the back of your mind and prevent you from, just like what John was saying, prevent you from being a confident player, and trusting your ability. You have to take that and say, hey, this is what happened, but we have to learn from it, and then you just have to move on. You have to let it go. You can't have that in the back of your mind, like, oh, what if I give this away again and it's going to result in a goal next time? It's just go out there and play, but understand what the mistake was and just move on. I think Daniel and probably Patterson both are the type that they'll understand that.
Yeah. And obviously, moving on to kind of the second half of the game, especially the latter stages of it, John, Sunderland did sit back a little bit too much, I think. And whether that was deliberate or not, obviously Coventry brought on a few changes and did stretch the play and got forward well. But on the goal, Kyle probably wants to cover his ears for this one because I'm going to name drop someone for it. But
I can handle it.
Whilst it was, like we say, a very good finish and definitely a championship style attack, I suppose, in terms of the quality of finish. But Luke O'Nien, he's chasing back, he puts a foot in, doesn't get the ball. Lyndon Gooch was marking, I think it's Gyökeres, I want to say. I might just not say his name because it's hard to pronounce. But Lyndon Gooch was marking him. He picks the ball up and Gooch just seems to back off him completely. That gives him like 5-10 yards to drive into, which is obviously when he takes the shot. He skips past Corey Evans in the process, who doesn't make any kind of challenge to try and take the ball off him or even just give away a foul. Not taking away anything from the finish, but you've got to defend that better, I think.
Yeah, I think they can do. It was sort of almost happening in sort of slow motion watching it. I think it's probably being quite critical here, but I think there's a little bit of naivety to think maybe you won't, maybe someone will just deal with it, because we've had that. It looked to me throughout some of the game that it would be, oh, don't worry, we'll be fine. Yeah. Instead of, I don't know why someone just doesn't smash him. I'm not quite sure if Luke O'Nien's already been booked, and I don't think so. So you would have thought he'd easily just take one, and we'll regroup for the free kick. They were dreadful on their free kicks, so you've maybe got to trust that. Obviously we don't want to give away free kicks, but if you have to, because if someone does and then they have a free kick, and then they ultimately don't do anything with it, we see the game out 1-0. Yeah. I think as well we almost sat back like you were saying, too much. I think there's a tendency to do that. We do have the quality to go forward and catch them, for a second goal. But we were far too deep, and I think we let them play a little bit. I think O'Nien was brought on to sort of, I'll say, smash them up a little bit, like he did at Roma and ruffle a few feathers, but didn't really do that until it was 1-0, and he's probably very, very lucky there's not VAR, because that would have been a straight red card. Yeah. But you've maybe got to think that I'd expect him to do that, when that player's going through. They've had ample chances, like you say, skip past Evans, skip past O'Nien. Gooch as well as he played, to sort of let his man go and not pressed him enough. Just take him out if you have to. And if someone bangs one in the top corner, you have to put your hands up sometimes. But ultimately it's cost us a goal because Patterson isn't getting anywhere near that. It's such a good finish around. I think it was around Bath or Ballard. It was round one of them, so it covered him. So Patterson's got absolutely no chance, and that's the difference in this league of 3 points and 1 point. Obviously we're probably happy to take, a lot of us would have taken a point, but you can't help but think that if we just do that one thing of, we call it game management, it is a very, very simple thing to do. Just take one for the team, take a booking. I don't know if one of them, Corey Evans, might have been booked already, but you've got to save them moments for that, and that sounds really, really simple. But I think you could, even though it was a poor goal to give away, I think you could sense it was, something was coming. They were doing really well, which then, ask more questions of, if Ross Stewart is dropping so deep, why not put, Sims on and just try and get him to bully them up top and hold the ball up and keep the ball away from our, out of our half almost. But, it didn't happen. But, it's like you say, it's hopefully one of those things that on the training ground, they'll look at it and they'll work on it. And, it's still a learning curve. We're not the finished article coming into the Championship. So it's maybe a bit of a learning curve, and probably a good that it's happened early, and, they can hopefully rectify.
Yeah. We're going to player ratings before we cover a couple of more things before we wrap it up. And I'm going to change it this time, because I'm not going to start with a rating. I'm going to ask you to the ratings, and then I'm just going to move on from it. So,
All right.
John, I'll start with you. Patterson in goal. He made the save for Panzo's shot, if anyone didn't realise, because at the time I didn't actually realise he got a touch on it till I saw the replay, and that is an excellent save. Yeah,
I'd go over 7. I thought he was, if you look at the difference in 6 months, and David Priest probably has to take a lot of plaudits for helping him along, but sort of game management of calming it down, and holding on to the ball at key times, and like say, I did notice when that guy took a shot, I'm pretty sure that you see Patterson, is very close to it, so that obviously when they showed the replay, it was no surprise that he did get a touch on it, which I think does help it, because if it hits the wrong side of the crossbar, then it's probably a wonder strike goal. But yeah, from yesterday, I wouldn't say I was, but I know a lot of people are worried, with his age and of how he was, sort of early on when he started. But yeah, no qualms from me, and 7, fully justified.
Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah, probably going to agree quite a bit on this, but because I think it's pretty standard performance. But I mean, from Patterson is great. Yeah, he didn't let the occasion get to him. It's really good signs. I'm sure there's going to be some bumps on the road, and especially with that strike yesterday. I mean, I've watched the replay of that like 6 or 7 times, and I can't even see the ball. It was hit that hard. I can't even see the ball. I don't think that's his fault, but yeah, his tip over the bar was fantastic. He commanded the box really well, came out and got the crosses very well. So yeah, it's very encouraging for him, and I think it's going to free us up to have a homegrown goalkeeper on the books, because now we don't have to go out and splash a ton of money on a new one. So if he can keep it up, I think it's going to help us out tremendously.
Yeah, and Kyle, I'm going to go straight back to you, because who else to talk about Lyndon Gooch than you?
Can I do a tale of two halves? No, I mean, first half I thought he was really good, to be honest. He's put up with a lot of it. He signed the contract, in the offseason, the extension or whatever. And honestly, I think this was a pretty good Gooch performance for the most part. Yes, he got lost in coverage for their one goal, but I think there's other places to blame there. But for the most part, I think he did well. I mean, the assist was very classic Lyndon Gooch, and maybe the offseason was just training really hard and just saying, hey, I got to make these decisions quicker. If he can just keep making those quick decisions, I think it's going to be good. No more holding on to the ball and trying to dribble players. It's just not going to happen. So sorry, I'll give him a 6. I'll give him a solid 6. I don't think he was a detriment, and he obviously contributed to our goal, but he also kind of gave up a goal, so it's a plus or minus 0 there. So I'd say a solid 6 for my boy Lyndon.
Yeah, fair enough, John.
I'd probably bump him up to a 7. I thought he was very solid, and obviously created the goal, like Carl was saying, and we want his decision making to be a lot quicker. And when it is, he had that left back on toast almost. Probably, I'd probably maybe a third of the blame for the goal, but apart from that, I thought it was absolutely solid. And I think, if it probably goes against what I've been saying. But if he's going to play right, like sort of right wing, we have to sort of, that's not always been his best position, as it's been sort of more forward. But if he's going to play in that position, and that is his position, and ultimately, obviously, we've got to judge him on that. So I'll keep him at a 7. But like you say, he's just got to watch that. Obviously, he's almost lost his man for the goal, which again, one of those things that needs to maybe work on. But yeah, I was still impressed, despite before the game not really being that bothered that he was playing. But yeah, fair play to him.
Yeah. Moving into defence, Danny Bart, possibly a surprise inclusion in the starting 11. I think myself and probably a few others thought Bailey White would start, but he didn't. So Danny Batth came in. John?
Yeah, I'll go for 7. I thought he was solid enough. Again, one of those players we've probably been crying out for a few years now. Just an absolute rock defender who will stick his head in, which he did at every single point, and did everything. Stood up to the task well. And yeah, there's not much else you can say really.
Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah, I think the best thing I could say about him is that I don't really remember him doing much, but that's usually good because if they're making too many mistakes. But no, I thought, I mean, just what a really good signing he was last season, obviously for us. And it took a little bit. I mean, I think his first performance was an own goal against us. So he's come a long way, and I think that it just shows kind of the faith that the recruitment has in these types of players, and I think he's slotted in nicely. The Bailey Wright thing is going to be interesting moving forward, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as games move on. But I think the back line did pretty well overall, and I think it started with Danny Batth for sure. So Bath, right? No, it's Bart. Yep. I mix it up every time, but yeah. So I'll say 7 for him as well.
Yeah, obviously Daniel Ballard made his debut, and possibly a few times he was a bit overcommitted to a challenge. Obviously, gave away a few free kicks, but like I said right at the start of the pod, them same fouls weren't given for Sunderland, so I can't really criticise him for that. I thought he was fairly solid throughout. So, waiting for Ballard, John.
I'll probably go over 6. Like you said, I think sometimes just a little bit eager to come out and have sort of an over tussle with his man, and Coventry forwards were quite sort of savvy to it, and sort of taking the free kicks, and maybe just needs to rein that in a little bit, channel that aggression that he's obviously got, and that want for the ball. But apart from that, I thought he was pretty solid, and probably a very, very good signing that sort of come out of nowhere.
Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah, I agree as well. Probably a little too handsy at times. So I think a lot of that's just going to come with, getting those feet to move a little bit quicker. Commanded well, played the ball really well. I might even bump him up to a 6.5 for the attempted bicycle because that was just hilarious. So
that was never a foul, by the way.
When it comes to
if you're giving away
right.
a free kick, and I'm pretty sure he got booked for it as well, for an attempted overhead kick.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. I think really though that's probably just the accumulation of little fouls that he kind of got away with, and then I mean, but talk about confidence players. I'm all for it. I'm all for defenders trying overhead kicks in the box, because you gotta have confidence, man. And never
completely
know.
off topic, but I can't actually remember. I don't know if one of you can. The last player to have scored an overhead kick for Sunderland. That might have to be a quiz question in the future. I'd have to Google it, of course, because I have no idea. Do you have any idea?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
We'll figure it out. We'll discuss. That's a great trivia question though, and that it's.
I feel like Maguire might have scored.
Right, I keep on. That's exactly what I was saying. But he did a lot of kind of side, like scissor kick. Yeah. I don't know. That'd be interesting.
I think you maybe have to go back to Kevin Phillips. Maybe I'm sure he got one.
Long time that.
Yeah, very long time. But
anyways,
I'll have to have a look after this to see who.
6.5 for Ballard for me. If I can do half, it's just because
they'll be pretty good at that.
Yeah. The other member of the back three, that is not the word I really wanted to use there, but I go with it anyway. Dennis Serkin played on the left side as a left-sided centre-back. John didn't do too much wrong, I don't think.
No, I saw a few people say, I don't know if it was a criticism, but he didn't really get forward too much. But I don't think as a third centre-back, he's probably there to to go forward. I thought his game was made a lot easier with the tracking back of Jack Clark, sort of covered him very well. But yeah, I didn't really notice Serkin too much. And like Carl said, if we're not noticing our centre backs too much, then we'll be happy with that.
Yeah. What about you, Kyle, on Dennis Serkin?
I'm a big Dennis Serkin fan, and I don't. There seems to be a contingent, and I think you could say about any player that really loves to kind of dig him out and bring up all these stats. But I don't know, when I watch him, he passes the eye test. I don't see him do too many things wrong. Maybe I'm missing things that he's not doing. But I just think he's been a really solid player and a really good signing. And he's the one that has the buyback clause, right?
Yeah, 6 million.
Right. So I don't know. Like, yeah, maybe we just wanted to kind of hover under the radar a little bit. I think he's a really solid player. I think he's going to continue to get better as well. So I'm a big fan of Dennis Durkin. So I would probably say 6, just because, I think he was just solid. Didn't make any mistakes, but didn't really do anything that dramatically impacted the game positively. But just played his role really well.
Yeah. Left wing back Jack Clark, John.
I'd probably go with an 8. Again, his goals, obviously right place, right time. Going forward, he had them on, their defenders on strings, the whole time. And his tracking back's obviously a lot better, playing for Leeds, and, he didn't really play for Tottenham. But, there's not going to be a lot of tracking back ingrained in you, on that, when he played for Leeds, and it was very much attacking. So, Alex Neil's obviously worked for him in the summer, and like I said, that's kept Dennis Irkin's game, sort of very, very quiet and easy, I would have said. So yeah, I'd go with an 8. Probably should have done better with when Pritchard passed across to him. And again, there was one other time he needs to gamble, at the back post. But yeah, I was very impressed with him, and yeah, I'd give him an 8.
Yeah, Kyle, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's why the signing was so important for him. I think he comes in, he's used to the team. You can tell too the way he celebrated after the goal, like going right over the fans. I think he enjoys it as well. I think he finally feels like he kind of has a home, permanent place, and that he can really showcase his abilities. And I think Alex Neil, like you said, mentioned, just when you get in the box, it's same thing goes to these decision makings. Just make the decision, make the play. Trust in your abilities, because we all know obviously he was signed. He's been highly rated. He's got the ability there. He's just got to trust it, and I think we'll see it. I think this level too also plays to him as well. He's going to be forced to react quicker and just trust that natural instinct that's gotten him this far. I'm really excited for him, so I think an 8.
Yeah, fair enough. Moving into midfield, Dan Neil started the game. Obviously, didn't feature too much under Alex Neil in the previous season. Obviously, he was kind of run into the ground a little bit by the previous manager, Lee Johnson. John?
I'd probably go over 6. And he was neat and tidy on the ball. Obviously, barring that one moment on the box where he sort of dithered a little bit. He needs to be a little bit more aware that teams, when they come to Stadium Light, are going to try and stop us playing out very, very quickly, which Coventry did. And then obviously, as I said earlier, it seems to get to 60 minutes, and you don't really notice in playing. I'd like to see him. I know he's only young, but I'd like to see him have a very much a 90-minute of just being on the ball and actually seeing him, and because we know he's got the ability, and I know he's only young, but he's we're probably expecting maybe a little bit more, but at no point do I want to criticize him, because I absolutely love him. So I'll go over 6, and hopefully he scores in the next game.
Hopefully so. Kyle?
Yeah, I agree with him. Yeah, with John as well. And I think the first half too, you could see kind of the Dan Neil experience, so to speak. He just seems to have his legs just keep getting longer, apparently, because there'll be a pass that I think for sure is ahead of him, or a touch that's ahead of him, but he gets it, and he has such soft feet with how he possesses the ball. I think really it's just right. I know, right? Yeah, it sounds a little creepy, but you know what I mean. But overall, I think really it's just his final probably delivery. He'll get in great positions, beat a couple men, and then just when he plays that final ball, it's just off just barely. But that's something that can so easily be worked on. So I think for him, the ceiling. I don't even know what a good comp would be, but he's probably got the highest ceiling on the team as it stands right now.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We'll try and rattle through these last few as quick as we can. Corey Evans obviously remained as captain, started the game yesterday, John.
I'll probably go over 6 again. Fairly steady. I'd like to see him. We said earlier, just smash and take one for the team there, but it's one of them. But yes, I'll just go over 6.
Yeah, Kyle.
I'll go with the 5. And just I felt like he was off it just a little bit, but we saw how Corey Evans. I mean, this is exactly how he started last season, and then we saw the type of player he became in the end. I think he'll adjust, and I think if this is going to be his worst performance, I'd rather be this early in the season. He can obviously get going and get better, but I'll give it a 5 just to spice it up a little bit and throw it out there.
Interesting. Elliot Embleton was perhaps another surprise inclusion in the starting 11, John. Did he warrant a place after his performance?
Well, obviously through pre-season, apparently he's been very, very good. I think he was in there maybe for his ball retention into control games. I probably would have liked him to see a little bit more from him. And I don't know what foot he is, but I assume that was supposed to be his weaker foot that he was shooting with. And he's
He is right-footed.
it doesn't even get on target, which I think even he will be disappointed with that.
Yeah.
That again, that was a bit of a frustration, but I'll probably just go over 6.
Yeah, that's fair. Kyle?
Yeah, I think it would be hard to drop him after being kind of a goal scorer at Wembley in the playoff game. I think that would have been a little tough, but same thing. I think we saw a lot of what Embleton does really well. I think he's got great ball retention, like you said, the ability to play with both feet. He did come up short on that one, on that one shot, or came up quite long, if you know what I mean. But overall, I think he played well. And I think his role specifically is going to be one that I don't think is going to be a constant starter. And I think whoever we bring in to kind of supplement him, and I think there'll be a little bit of chopping and changing there. But I think he's proved that he can play at this level. Well, I guess I won't say that yet because it's still a long season. But he looked good. He didn't look out of place by any means. So I'll give him a 6.
Moving on to Alex Pritchard, John.
I'd probably go for probably a 7. I know you got Sky Sports Man of the match. I'm not quite sure. I agree with that, but again, looks after the ball very well. Was popping up here, there, and everywhere. I probably would have liked to see him stay on the pitch and not come off, but you never know, he might be carrying a knock or something. But yeah, I thought is his busy self, picking out passes that probably we don't even see. So I'll probably just go over 7.
Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah, I think he relished the moment too, kind of back in the championship again. I think that's where he said in the interview that that's where he believes his level is. Obviously, I mean, if he could play in the Prem, that'd be one thing. But I think he knows, and I think that was a big opportunity for him yesterday. And overall, he did well, commanded the ball well, distribution was good. So yeah, I'll give him a 7 as well. Yeah, I think that the man of the match was interesting, but overall, anything that we had going forward, he was somehow involved, which is exactly what you want to see from his position.
Yeah. And last but not least, Ross Stewart. John.
I'll probably go with a 7. And it's probably more for his work rate and his endeavour. And maybe would have liked to seen him switch it up a little bit and maybe come off after sort of 70, 75 minutes and give Sims a go maybe. But I don't think you can underestimate either. When Coventry were sort of getting crosses in, and Ross Stewart was at the back, sort of heading them here and everywhere, which is a big asset that sometimes gets overlooked. So yeah, I'll probably go with a 7. Now I think he got in. I think he got in the team of the week.
He did, yeah. Him and Jack Clark did, yeah.
That's obviously through stats and take-ons, and because I'm sure he scored a hat-trick before and not got in there through the stats. So I think the stats can be a bit misleading sometimes. But yeah, I was happy with his work rate.
Yeah, and Kyle, last but not least.
Yeah, he was his usual self again, just working hard, and it is going to be interesting to see how we use Sims. Is it going to be a like for like swap? Is it going to be substitution type things? Is there going to be an opportunity to play them both on the field? That's what I'm looking forward to the most, because every team we play, they look at, okay, how do we defend against Sunderland? It's like, okay, well, we stop Ross Stewart first and foremost. I think he's going to get the eye of pretty much most teams' defensive back line, which should free up our other wingers and goal scorers, which I think will be nice in the end. But yeah, how we're going to use him and Sims is going to be interesting, but I love everything he does. So yeah, S7 for Stewart as well.
Yeah. So going by process of elimination and the fact 8 is a higher number than 7, Jack Clark is probably the man of the match that we're going to go with. So the last two things that we'll talk about, of course, we'll get on to predictions for Bristol City, which is the next game, next Saturday away from home, of course, completely different game. But before then, what is a realistic aim for Sunderland this season, John? People, I think I've said to a few people, this team, because it's so untested and just not used to playing at this level, could genuinely finish anywhere from about 4th to 20th. I think it's a tough league. It's probably one of the most competitive leagues in terms of how closely matched each team is in the division. but what would be a realistic and probably successful season for Sunderland?
I think for me, I don't think you should. Well, in the moment, anyway. I don't think you should maybe put a position on it. I know what people would take, and if snap your hand off now. But I think it's a case of getting to Christmas and see where you are. If we get to Christmas and we're mid-table, maybe there is the scope then to add one or two quality signings that might push us on a run into the playoffs. We could get to Christmas and be in the playoffs, and we need to cement it a bit more, or can we find that extra push, or are we going to get to January and see us maybe struggling a little bit? I don't think you should necessarily put I've seen a lot of people say, oh, I'll take 14th like right now. I'm not so sure that you can when you see teams like, I think was it Barnsley who were quite high up, and you saw Luton on their budget and those types of things.
It's always hard after the first few games as well. I think Norwich are one of the favourites for the league, and of course they lost their first game of the season to Cardiff, who I think something like 6th favourite to be relegated, I think I saw.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen sort of overkill on other things. Burnley, but I think didn't Burnley win 1-0 against Huddersfield? I saw people asking for bets on them to go unbeaten, and I think it's one game they've beat Huddersfield 1-0. They didn't beat them 10-0. I just don't think at the moment, you never know the way it's going to go, and I probably don't see it. I think Alex Neil would be a little bit pragmatic about it. Obviously, there'll be discussions behind the scenes to say this is the minimum, but I'd expect get to sort of Christmas time, see where you are, and then do we have a go, or do we try and just stabilise it, or personally for me, I think we should maybe aim to be in the top half of the table at Christmas, and then can we then add and go on a run, and I'm sure we can. We've always been good at attracting players in January, which can kick us on and push us on, and those types of things. So in this league, I think the sky is the limit, but obviously there's got to be pragmatism in there as well. But I wouldn't like to put a position on it. As consolidation, I'd probably say I would happily maybe accept that in this league if we're going to build and sustain that way, then I'm all for that. But I don't think
of course there has to be a sense of realism as well, because like Alex Neil said on the radio the other day, which is a fact. And I say it's a fact, I'm probably going to get the numbers wrong on this, but I think it's 5 or possibly 4 of the last 5 teams that have got promoted to the playoffs have went straight back down the next season.
Yeah, I mean, again, you've got to take that into consideration. Again, like I said, the consolidation thing. Yes, fine. What I mean is we don't want to say, we just want to consolidate. Next thing we find ourselves, I don't know, in the 3rd place. Do you know what I mean? We're obviously over, going above and beyond what our expectations are is obviously a very good thing. What I mean is, if we could be like, are you happy to sit and say, well, we'll take mid-table right now at the end of the season, which I'm sure we would. But what I'm saying is, if we could find ourselves in a better position, ultimately we could find ourselves in a lesser position. What I mean is, we need to get to January, see where we are, I think, and then like I say, can we progress? Do we just keep it tight? Those sorts of things, and see where we are. But I'd happily say top 10 finish. Even if we just miss out, I'd personally probably take that.
Yeah, I think anyone would, but there is a long way to go before any kind of league table, league position, and before you start looking at teams around you. So long way to go, but not too long until the next game, which is of course on Saturday away to Bristol City. Kyle, I'll go to you first. Predictions for that one, and again, like predicting a league position, this is probably an impossible task this early into the season, but I'm going to put you on the spot anyway.
Well, if you look at the table right now, we are smack dab in the middle. We're 12th, and I think I think if that's just how it was, I think I'd be okay with that. As far as like priorities go, number 1 is just don't get relegated. That's obviously number 1.
That's the most important thing.
Right. And number 2 is just, I just don't want there to be a point in the season where we're looking for answers and nobody has an answer, right? Where we're like, okay, well, how do we fix this? How do we fix that? Like, as long as we just say, this is the plan, this is the structure, this is the formation that we're not formation, but this is our style of play. These are the types of players we're recruiting. As long as we can identify that, as long as we don't get relegated, I think the rest is the rest is kind of a moot point. Just make it entertaining for one, as long as it's not a slog. But yeah, honestly, if we could finish 12th and just have, hey, look, this is how we're going to play. These are the types of players that we can look for moving forward. And if we kind of follow this and trust the process, as we like to say out here, then we'll get results. I think that'll be great. So any mid-table, I'm totally fine with, as long as we can identify, okay, this is what we did that worked. Maybe these things didn't work. We have some built-in advantages with just the size of our stadium, our fan base, things like that. The teams that have gotten promoted via the playoffs previous seasons, I don't think had those. They had much smaller grounds, a lot lesser facilities. They just weren't ever going to survive. We're going to be an interesting case example to see kind of what this process looks like moving forward. And it does seem like we have things in place for that. So my position there, like I said, we're sitting 12th now. I'd be totally happy if we just ended the season at 12th, to be honest. And then as far as Bristol City goes, they lost at the almost like the last possible second against Hull. So they're likely going to come out with a little bit of a taste of vengeance in their mouth. And so for us, it's going to be, hey, playing away. I know nothing of Bristol City, to be completely honest, other than what I see in the stats. I couldn't even point it on the map. But overall, I think if we just go out there, a first road test, I think the away fans will be. What do they have a decent sized ground, Bristol? Do you guys know? Bristol City
compared to Sunderland, no, I don't think. But
right.
I think. It's not a small stadium, I don't think.
Away allocation will probably be a couple thousand, probably.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So that'll be fun to see. I think our fans will have a good time of it, and really spur us on. So I think the same thing. A little bit's going to have to be, hey, we're going to go out there and just have to not get beat. But I think as we kind of stabilize and move forward, take our chances, like we mentioned earlier. I don't see why we couldn't get a win out of there, but I'll probably take a safe draw, maybe a 1-1 again. And wouldn't that just be the cyclical nature of things as a Sunderland fan, is that the 1-1 is now kind of the cool, sexy thing, whereas in League One, it was unacceptable.
Yeah, that was a very long score prediction, I must say.
Sorry. I know. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on the pod. I've had a lot to say.
I'll let you off. John, a much short score prediction?
Just like Carl said, I'll probably take a draw. But I think Alex Neil's probably set up for, to maybe be a bit pragmatic, and if we can nick it, perfect. If we get a draw, I'm more than happy with an away point in the Championship. But I'd love to nick it.
Yeah, hopefully so. But that is, of course, next Saturday. We will have a preview out for that game, hopefully in the next few days, probably Thursday or Friday. That will come out if we can get it arranged. But been a pleasure. Like I said, first game talking about the Championship. Well, in 5 years, one of them, as a Sunderland fan, of course, the first one we've done on this podcast. So it has been a pleasure. But we will be back with that preview, and of course, we'll be back to talk about the Bristol game on the Sunday. But until then, we will see you later.
That's all, folks.